Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's live reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the Sages of Naimisharanya. And at the moment, we are reading from chapter 8, Krishna Saves His Devotees. So we were reading the prayers of Queen Kunti yesterday, how Kunti Maharani was thankful to Krishna when Krishna was leaving for Dwarka after the battle, and all the aftermath we learned and read in the previous chapters. Chapter 8, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is from chapter 8, Canto 1, verses 32 to 36. Kunti shook her head in amazement. I have heard sages discuss your activities, she's saying to Krishna, of course. Some argue that you came to establish Yudhishthira as the emperor. Others say you appeared in the Yadu dynasty to glorify your devotee King Yadu. Still others say you came because Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you to deliver him and your other devotees from the vicious and atheistic miscreants, while some sages say you came to save the world on Lord Brahma's request. I have also heard it said the real reason you have come to enact so many mystifying pastimes is to inspire people to hear and talk about you. One attracted to such discussions gains immediate relief from suffering arising from past misdeeds. Even the very sinful can attain pure love for you by regularly discussing your glories. Indeed, those who take pleasure in narrations of your transcendental activities will certainly see your lotus face-like feet, which alone can free one from the cycle of birth and death. Lotus-like feet. Chapter 8, verses 37 to 40. Kunti began to tremble with ecstatic emotion as she swayed back and forth. Krishna placed an arm around her to steady her. He called to the royal attendants, quickly bring water. Sipping cool water from the silver cup, Kunti gradually regained her composure. Krishna embraced his aunt and then, touching her feet, asked permission to depart. I have been here for many months and I am receiving messages from my father that I am needed back in Dwarka, he explained. Kunti became agitated. Dear Krishna, please do not go. Whatever you need to do in Dwarka, you can accomplish merely by your desire. Why do you wish to leave us who so completely depend on you? You know my sons have created many enemies after the war. You are our only shelter. My dear aunt, replied Krishna soothingly, you have no need to fear. Yudhishthira is protected by his virtue. Your other sons are also powerful, and we Yadus are your stalwart political allies. Kunti's anxiety would not be assuaged. As the senses have no power when the soul leaves the body, similarly neither my sons nor the Yadus have any power when you are not with us. She clutched Krishna's hands in her own and pleaded, my lord, please do not go. Only because of your footprints mark this land does it appear beautiful. When you leave, it will no longer be so. This thriving earth filled with herbs, fruit-laden trees, forests, mountains and rivers only prospers because of your glance. Chapter 8, verses 41 through to 43. Kunti's mind drifted to thoughts of her brother Vasudeva and his wife Devaki. Surely they must be suffering in Krishna's absence. Maybe he should go to them, but if Krishna left, what would happen to her sons? O Krishna, because of my dual attachment to both Pandavas and the Yadavas, I am feeling torn. Please sever my material affections. O Lord of the Madhu dynasty, just as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, please let my attraction be constantly drawn to you alone. We have to learn so much from Kunti, Mother Kunti's prayer. Even in some kind of material problems, we can say, she's asking for the right guidance, or for the right benediction, for the right Vardhan from Bhagwan. Overwhelmed, Kunti sank to her knees with her hands clasped. O Krishna, friend of Arjun, best of the Yadavas, destroyer of the vicious kings, lord of the undiminished strength, protector of the cows, brahmanas and devotees, master of yogic powers, guru of all, Almighty, I offer you my humble obeisances. Chapter 8, verses 44 to 52. Krishna bent over and gently helped his aunt to rise, wiping away her tears. He assured her that her desire would be fulfilled and her attraction would never waver from him. Then he turned to address Yudhishthir. O king, before I leave, I must bid farewell to the other ladies in the palace. Draupadi and Subhadra had gone into the palace to attend to Uttara, who was still weak from her ordeal. Krishna, Yudhishthir, Kunti, Satyaki and Uddhav walked back to the palace, followed by other Pandavas. The Lord entered the women's quarters to inquire after Uttara and found her in bed, surrounded by anxious female relatives and friends. The Lord said to them, Do not fear for Uttara or her child, they will both be fine. Indeed, Uttara will give birth to a son who will grow up to be a great monarch. After exchanging affectionate words with Uttara, Draupadi and Subhadra, he tenderly bid them farewell. Leaving the ladies' quarters, followed by the Pandavas as well as Satyaki and Uddhav, he turned to Yudhishthir and said, O king, my relatives in Dwarka want me to return. Please give me permission to depart. Yudhishthir's face contorted into a mask of pain. Placing a hand on Krishna's arm, he said, Surely you will return to Dwarka if it is your will, but how will I survive without your guidance? In doleful tones, Yudhishthir confided his fears. Ashwathama's recent attack had highlighted the extent of enmity the war had created. There would be much work to do to strengthen alliances and to ensure that orphans were all protected. Krishna encouraged them, My dear Yudhishthir, the time has come. You must now accept the throne. Overcome by emotion, Yudhishthir shook his head. Surely I am unfit to rule the world. How can I lead anyone? I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart so full of ignorance, just to further the interests of my own body, which is fit to be eaten by jackals. I have killed legions of family and friends. For my sake, countless boys, Brahmins, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers have perished. I shall have to suffer in hell for millions of years for my sin. Yudhishthir turned to Bhima and said, Brother, take the throne. I shall go to the forest to perform penance. Bhima looked shocked. My lord, this can never be. How can I rule in your place? Do not censure yourself so. You are a great warrior and leader. You have done your duty. Now accept the throne and rule over this wide earth. Yudhishthir said nothing. Arjun came up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. How have you spoken such words, dear brother? After conquering your enemies, you are now the world's rightful ruler. As a Kshatriya, it is your duty to protect the people. It is not time for you to renounce. Kings like you must perform sacrifice and then distribute wealth to those in need. In this way, pious monarchs increase their virtue and fame. The world stands in need of a leader following in the footsteps of the great kings in our line. You should become emperor of the earth. How could you accept any other path? Yudhishthir sighed deeply. There is no sin for the king who kills enemies, who attacks his people. Duryodhana, however, posed so no threat to the citizens. I have killed him and his supporters only out of greed for a kingdom. Nakul said, My lord, by performing your kingly duties, you can absolve yourself of any sin you may have incurred. Yudhishthir lowered his head. No amount of material welfare work can counteract the suffering I have caused by the war. Sahadev also tried to convince the king by performing horse sacrifices. As Krishna suggested, you can purify yourself, my lord. Yudhishthir looked around at his brothers, who were all gazing anxiously at him. He spoke in a low, anguished voice, just as one cannot purify muddy water by straining it through mud, nor a wine-stained pot by washing it with wine. Similarly, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. Krishna said, Yudhishthir, your brothers have sacrificed much to win your kingdom back. You cannot desert them now. They and the people need you. Do not shy away from your duty. Yudhishthira turned his tear-filled eyes towards Krishna, seeing the Lord's beautiful features and hearing his instruction calmed his mind. He spoke pleadingly, "O Krishna, please delay your return to Dwarka for a little longer. My heart is burning. I cannot see my way forward." Krishna embraced Yudhishthira. "Obliged by your love for me, I shall stay a few more days." When Sutta stopped speaking, no sound could be heard. Along with the sages, it seemed as if the birds, fire, and air were listening with fixed attention. After a few moments, Shaunak broke the silence. "What an enthralling account." I noted that Queen Kunti shed light on our third question regarding why Krishna appears. He mainly comes to perform his wonderful pastimes to conditioned souls can take in hearing about it and discussing him. Sutta's eyes lit up. "Yes, I was also stressing this earlier. Such discussions awaken our attraction for Krishna, thereby destroying our illusion." Shaunak asked what happened to the child in Uttara's womb. "He was born in a good health and later became the great emperor Parikshit." When the incident with Ashwatthama occurred, the embryonic child saw Lord Krishna, club in hand, encircling and protecting him. From that moment, he was devoted to Krishna. So, how fortunate was Uttara's child, Abhimanyu, and Uttara and Abhimanyu's son, Parikshit, that from that very moment when Krishna protected him, he had taken the darshan of Krishna and he had become devoted to Krishna. And all through his life, he would peer carefully at each face he saw, searching for that person he had seen in the womb. For this reason, he was called Parikshit, or the seeker. The sages expressed wonderment that Krishna had appeared to the unborn child in his mother's womb and protected him from harm. Chapter 8, verse 16, Sutta laughed, "O Brahman, do not think this to be especially wonderful for Krishna. Merely by his will he creates, maintains, and annihilates the universe." Shaunak wondered how a sober monarch like Yudhishthira could become so affected by material grief that he would consider abandoning his duty. Revealing this doubt to Sutta, he added, Only an ignorant person thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body." How was the emperor so bewildered? Sutta replied, "Yudhishthira is a self-realized soul." Krishna directly induced his confusion. Shaunak frowned. How can that be? Krishna himself tried without success to dissipate his grief and bewilderment. The Lord did this to glorify Bhishma, explained Sutta. He confounded Yudhishthira's mind, making the king incapable of understanding even his instructions. Because the Lord wanted to give Bhishma the credit for enlightening Yudhishthira. Krishna also wanted to please Bhishma by visiting him along with the Pandavas. "Please tell us what happened when they saw Bhishma." "Listen," said Sutta. So, Krishna wants to glorify his devotee, and Krishna creates such enigma or such situation that all the glory goes to the devotee. So Yudhishthira couldn't understand Krishna's instructions directly, and how the credit went to Bhishma for enlightening Yudhishthira. So we'll continue from our reading and we'll begin chapter 9 next time, which is entitled Bhishma Departs. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.